My daughter-in-law looked me straight in the face and said, "You're old now, Mama. Just stay home and watch the house for us." I only smiled. But what nobody knew was that just a few hours later, I was the one standing on the deck of a luxury cruise ship, and they were still trying to figure out how their poor old mama got there before they did. Malik, my son, the boy I raised with my own two hands, forgot who I used to be, forgot just how strong I really was. And Kyra, she treated me like something left out behind the house only to be called on when she needed money or when she needed someone to make her fancy life look fuller. They thought I was weak. They thought I was blind. They thought they could squeeze $15,000 out of me with one little lie about a roof about to collapse. But they forgot one thing. When a mother goes quiet, it doesn't mean she's fragile. Sometimes it means the storm is gathering strength. And the day I picked up that crumpled invoice from the trash can, that was the day the storm named Marceline Booker truly woke up. My name is Marceline Booker, and I just turned 65. I was born and raised out in the outskirts of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, a place full of sunlight, that damp smell after the rain cicadas hollering, and long, endless afternoons. Back when I was young, I was the kind of strong woman everybody in the community knew by name. I ran my own trucking company, had over 100 employees, big rigs running all across the South. Folks called me Big Sister Booker, not because I was mean, but because I was decisive, knew how to handle anything from signing contracts to untangling messes. But time has a way of changing things in ways nobody ever asked for. When my husband Nathan passed 10 years ago, it felt like half my heart and half my good sense just died with him. Nathan was always the one steadying me when my temper flared, the one reminding me to hold on to control, not to hand too much power to anybody, even our own child. But in the middle of that grief, I did the one thing he warned me never to do. I signed everything over to our only son, Malik Booker. I looked him in the eye and said, "Baby, you the man of this family now? Mama trusts you." I still remember that day so clearly. Malik hugged me tight and promised he'd take care of me for the rest of my life. But time proved I was wrong to put a burden that heavy on someone who wasn't ready to carry it. After he married his wife, Kyra, everything changed so fast I didn't even have time to catch myself. Kyra's the type of woman who keeps a sweet as syrup smile for the public, but her eyes cut like razor blades. I never hated that girl. I tried to love her like my own. But she never saw me as anything except a walk-in wallet, a money machine standing inside a big old house with 3 generations of Booker history in its walls. And Malik, Lord have mercy. He used to be that little boy running behind me at the truck yard, begging to climb into the Max cab so he could learn to be a man. But after he married Kyra, he turned light as straw. Not because life swept him away, but because his wife's voice did. Kyra taught him that a man don't serve his mama, that he needs his own life, and most importantly, mama's money gonna be his anyway. I don't blame my son. He ain't wicked, just weak. And sometimes weakness is the thing that destroys a bond faster than evil ever could. When they moved into the big Booker residence, the house my granddaddy built in the 50s, I stepped back into the little guest house out back. A small brick place with 1 bedroom, a tiny kitchen, and a porch where I grew peas and eggplants and a few rows of purple flowers. I thought having my own space would feel peaceful, but the longer I stayed back there, the more I felt like an old piece of furniture. Something folks don't want to throw away, but don't care to put anywhere special either. Malik stopped looking me in the eye. Kira only came over when she needed something, when she wanted me to watch the house, when she needed a signature, when she wanted my bank card for this week's expenses. I tried not to dwell on it, tried to hold on to my pride in the Booker family, to my memories of Nathan, just to keep a kind heart inside me. But some nights when the kitchen lights in the main house came on, when I heard Malik and Kyra laughing while I ate dinner alone, my heart felt like a chair with a broken leg, nobody fixing it, nobody missing it. That day was a cool autumn afternoon. That Louisiana damn cold was slipping right through my sweater. I was standing in my little kitchen sauteing onions and bell peppers, the dish I always made when I missed the days of the whole family gathered at the big dinner table. The heat from the pan flushed my cheeks, but inside I felt cold. I knew I'd be eating alone again. Just then, Malik and Kyra pushed the door open. No knock, no hello, no respect, even though this was my home. Malik stood there, hesitant eyes looking anywhere but at me. Kyra let out this long, dramatic sigh, like the whole world sat on her shoulders. Mama, we need to talk. Malik started his voice so soft, most folks wouldn't have even heard it. Kyra didn't let him get another word out. Mama Marceline, the house roof's leaking bad. We checked already. The east side's all black with mold. If it don't get fixed soon, that ceiling gonna fall in. I turned to them, still stirring my pan. How much, I asked, calm as ever. Kyra put her hand to her chest like she was moved. Estimates about 15,000. And we're kind of tight this month. We already bought tickets for our weekend trip, so we can't take you with us. Adding another ticket is just too much. I saw it. That tiny flicker of joy in Kyra's eyes when she said I wouldn't be going. She hit it quick, too quick for most folks, but not for me. I didn't say a word. I just lowered the heat and answered, If it needs fixin', Mama will handle it. Malik let out a breath of relief. Kyra jumped right in. Mama let us take care of everything. You just trust us. You'll have a brand new roof soon. When they walked out the door, I turned back to my stove. The onions were starting to burn, little black edges curling up. But it felt like something else was burning too, the last little piece of trust I'd been holding on to. I didn't know just how deep the hurt ran. But I knew one thing for sure, something in me shifted. I wasn't angry. I didn't cry. I didn't curse nobody. I just understood. Understood that in my own home, I no longer mattered. Understood that they would keep taking, keep asking, keep pressing until there was nothing left of me. And I knew I had to wake up. 2. That night, just as the sky dipped into darkness, I gathered up the kitchen trash to carry it out to the big bin out front. Baton Rouge was slipping into late fall, and the wind coming off the Mississippi had that wet, icy bite that makes you pull your sweater tight around your neck. The crescent moon hung sideways in the sky, thin and sharp, like it was smirking at my life, a life that had drifted far, far away from the glory days I once knew. The stone path leading from the guest house to the trash bin had been peaceful for years. But that evening, for reasons I couldn't name, my feet felt heavy, like something inside me was shifting some kind of intuition, some wrongness my mind hadn't caught up to yet. When I lifted the lid of the trash bin, the hinge screeched a sharp little creak like a warning. A crumpled piece of paper sat right at the edge of the lid, rolling back and forth in the breeze. Normally, I wouldn't think twice, but the way that paper hit my foot, it felt like it wanted to be picked up. So I bent down, grabbed it, meaning to toss it back in. But the weight of it, thicker, stiffer than a grocery receipt or a coupon, made me pause. Slowly, I unrolled it. The dull yellow street lamp cast just enough light for me to read. One single line froze my whole body in place. Apex River Cruises, invoice, Grand River Suite, $15,000. For a moment, every sound disappeared. No wind, no rustling leaves, no cars humming down the boulevard. Just my heart slow and deliberate, beating like one of those deep church drums on Easter Sunday. $15,000, luxury suite, paid yesterday, the exact amount I had handed Malik and Kyra to fix the roof. I stood there for a long time, the paper trembling in my hand because of the wind. But strangely, my hand wasn't trembling from anger, not from shock, not from hurt. It was emptiness, a hollow space stretching from my chest all the way down to my gut. I thought I'd cry. I thought I'd shake from betrayal. I didn't. What I felt was silence, a terrifying absolute quiet. The kind my daddy used to warn me about, the kind that settles over the Gulf Coast before a hurricane hits. Right before the world tears itself open, the ocean goes still as glass. Moonlight sits on the water without a single ripple. No warning, no sound, just that deep, bone-deep knowing that something terrible is coming. I folded the paper, slid it into my pocket, and went back to the guest house. My steps were so light, I barely felt myself moving. I don't remember opening the door, don't remember turning the lights on, but I remember the moment I sat on the edge of my bed. The lamp cast a warm glow across the invoice in my hand, shining a light on the truth I'd been avoiding. My son had lied to me. My daughter-in-law had orchestrated the whole thing, and together they used the money I'd saved for my own funeral to go enjoy a life they didn't deserve. I sat there for a long time. No tears, no complaints, just one long breath, like my soul was letting go of the last hope that Malik still had any love for his mama. Then I opened my closet drawer and pulled out a wooden box. Inside was a dark brown leather notebook, something I'd kept hidden for 10 long years, ever since I stepped away from the business world and gave Malik everything except this. I flipped to the first page. One name and a phone number were written there. Marcus Beaumont, my right-hand man from back in the day, the one person who remembered exactly who I used to be. The man who still called me Madam Booker, even when I was standing in the church kitchen selling fundraiser cookies. Aw. I picked up my phone. My hands were steady in a way that felt unnatural. I dialed each number slowly in the dark. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a deep, rough voice, still sharp as ever, cut through. "This is Beaumont. Who's on the line?" I closed my eyes for a second. "It's me, Marcus," I said, my voice low, even unshaken. "Marceline, I need information." There was a short silence. Then Marcus's tone shifted formal and straight back, like he was standing right in front of me. "Madam Booker, it's been a long time. Tell me what you need." I told him, plain and simple, no whining, no sob story. I refused to sound like a victim because I wasn't one. He stayed silent as I spoke, then finally asked, "What exactly do you want me to look into?" My answer was Clean River Crown Group. "I need to know the current ownership structure." Marcus replied with only 3 words. "Give me 3 minutes." Those 3 minutes felt like a whole year. I listened to the clock ticking, listened to my own breathing, listened to that strange calm flooding through my chest like cold water. Then the phone buzzed. Marcus said, "Madam Booker, you are still the controlling shareholder." My eyes flew open. What I checked 3 times to be sure. The shares you sold back then were only for the trucking division, the river cruise division, Apex. River Cruises was part of your private investment, untouched. Nobody could access it. You still hold absolute authority. And suddenly everything snapped into place. The ship Malik and Kara were traveling on, the ship they used my money to pay for, that ship belonged to me. I asked again, just to make sure fate really was picking sides tonight. "Marcus, are you telling me I can still run Apex, not just run it? You're the final signature in the entire operation." A small laugh slipped out of me. Deep quiet, not joyful, no. It was the laugh of someone who finally remembered who she is. In that moment in the dark, a new Marcelin Booker was born, or maybe the old one finally woke up. Not the forgotten mother at the back of the yard, not the quiet shadow in her own home, but the woman who once commanded hundreds, signed multi-million-dollar contracts, and made an entire industry take notice. I set the phone down and drew in a long, steady breath. For the first time in years, I felt something I thought I'd lost power, and I understood then. The invoice in my pocket wasn't a disaster, it was a summons, a call reminding me it's time to take back everything that's mine. 3. I couldn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry and not because I felt sorry for myself. The feeling in my chest was something else, something unfamiliar. A cold, razor-sharp calm like the Mississippi River on moonless nights, black, deep, quiet as death, but underneath a current strong enough to swallow an entire shoreline with just one crack in the earth. Sitting alone under that old yellow lamp in the guest house, I realized something I should never have forgotten these past 10 years. I was never weak. I just forced myself to live small for the sake of family peace. But when your kindness gets treated like weakness, it stops being a virtue. It becomes a shackle. I stood up and opened the old oak wardrobe. Behind the sweaters and the church dresses was a long walnut box. Its wood had darkened with age, but every time I touched it, that warm scent of wood and faded lavender still rose up to meet me. I lifted the lid. Inside wasn't jewelry, wasn't family photos, wasn't keepsakes. It was the key to the woman I used to be, the outfit I wore to the biggest meetings back when I ran Booker Logistics. A cream-colored Italian suit, clean lines, soft but strong. elegant but commanding. Beneath it lay my favorite silk scarf, burnt red, with hints of gold like autumn leaves just beginning to turn. I'd hidden them for 10 years, scared that seeing them would make the past hurt too much. But tonight, when my fingers brushed that cool, smooth fabric, it didn't bring pain, it brought strength. I showered long under hot water, washing off the smell of grease food and the quiet little life I'd been living all this time. When I stepped out, steam still fogged the mirror. I wiped it clean and looked straight at the woman staring back. Maybe for the first time in years, I saw Big Sister Booker again, the woman who signed $1 million deals under the watchful eyes of fat white men in New Orleans, who stood at the head of loading lines and directed 10 drivers with one gesture, who knew exactly when to soften and when to stand firm. That woman never died. She just went to sleep. I slipped into the suit. The fabric touched my skin like a voice saying, "Stand tall, Marceline. Ain't nobody got the right to shrink you but you." Then I pulled on a long gray overcoat to hide what I was wearing underneath. I didn't want Malik or Kyra catching even a whiff of what was coming. Let them think I was just their quiet, harmless mama, stepping out early to visit a friend. Outside, the morning air was cold fog rising low off the street. I stood on the porch and took a deep breath. The chill slapped my face awake. At exactly 7 a.m., a black sedan rolled through the gate. Special plates, dark windows. I stepped off the porch. The driver, big man in a sharp suit, opened the door and bowed his head. "Madam Booker, we've been waiting." I nodded. "Let's go, Quincy." On the way to the river port, I made another call to the one man I knew would never turn his back on me. Franklin Bradshaw, the old attorney, who protected Booker Logistics for over 20 years. "Franklin, I need you to reinstate my control over Apex River Cruises immediately. I want full operating authority for the duration of the current voyage." "I'll handle it right now. That ship is still under your asset umbrella. I just need your voice authorization." I gave it, clean, quick, steady. As we neared the port, I tugged my overcoat just low enough to reveal the cream suit. Not to show off, but to remind myself exactly who was walking in. The New Orleans River port was already buzzing. Families lined up with kids, luggage, snacks, chatter everywhere. But Quincy didn't stop there. He turned right, heading straight for the gate marked "Authorized Personnel Only." Two security guards stood watch. One look at the plates and they hit the button, no questions asked. The sedan rolled into the VIP and investor entrance. When I stepped out, the river wind blew hard, lifting my hair just a little. I slid off my sunglasses to take in the ship in full view, Apex Magnolia, a massive gleaming beauty as elegant as a floating hotel. A pang hit my chest. I'd helped build that ship, handpicked the interior designs, the wood finishes. And now, my own son was using my money to lie his way into a luxury suite on my ship, leaving me behind like I was nothing. Two crew members in crisp white uniforms hurried over. One smiled professionally. "Madam Booker, the captain's been informed. Your owner's suite is being prepared." "Welcome aboard." I nodded, stepping onto the private gangway. The river wind pushed my coat open, revealing the suit underneath. And that feeling came rushing back, the feeling of stepping into a place that belonged to me. The moment my foot touched the deck, I knew a chapter had closed. Not because my son betrayed me, but because I decided nobody would ever get to define my worth again. That day, it wasn't me boarding the ship. It was the real Marceline Booker returning to the throne she'd stepped away from. And I knew this confrontation wouldn't come with yelling, wouldn't come with tears, wouldn't come with blame. It would happen my way, quiet, precise, and heavy with truth. 4. When I stepped into the owner's suite aboard the Apex Magnolia, it felt like I was walking straight into a part of my past that had been buried for years. The room was spacious, polished walnut everywhere, a faint hint of perfume drifting through the air, all things I had once chosen, approved, debated over with excitement back in the day. And yet somehow I was only now returning as the person who truly belonged here. I closed the door. The whole room sank into a deep, luxurious silence. Not the lonely kind of silence from the little guest house out back, where even the bugs seemed to whisper reminders that I'd been forgotten. No, this silence felt like it was asking me, "So you finally came home, Marceline?" I set my bag down and walked to the large glass window overlooking the lower deck. From up here, I could see the crowd pushing through check in. My eyes scanned until I found the pair I was looking for, Malik and Kyra. Malik dragging those two oversized suitcases, face scrunched up in the sun. Kira standing beside him, fussing with her phone and shaking her head at a porter like the whole world owed her something. I watched them for a long moment, not to judge, just to measure exactly how rotten the last thread between us had become. I turned back inside. The security system remote lay neatly on the table. I picked it up and pressed the power button. The large screen lit up 4 camera feeds at once: VIP hallway, restaurant lobby, upper deck access, and most importantly, the interior of the Grand River Suite, the room my son thought belonged to him. I tapped that feed. It expanded to full screen. For the first few minutes, the room was empty. I sat on the sofa, crossed my legs, draped my silk scarf over my shoulder, and waited. 2 minutes, three. Then the door flew open like Kyra wanted the entire ship to know she had arrived. She entered first, heels clacking on the wooden floor, like it was her personal runway. Malik followed behind her, out of breath. "Oh my God, look at this room," Kyra squealed, spinning around. "This is luxury. This is what our money gets us." I let out a small exhale, a silent laugh. Not amused, just unsurprised. Kyra waltzed out to the balcony, threw the door wide open to let the wind blast through like she owned the place. Malik dropped into a chair, swirling the complimentary champagne like it was his birthright. Then, as always, they started talking about me. Kyra mocked my voice, dragging her words out, adding that frail old lady quiver. "Oh, darling, Mama understands. Mama can't go 'cause Mama's too broke. Y'all go have fun. Mama'll watch the house for you, okay?" Malik laughed so hard he nearly spilled his drink. She believed everything we tell her. Think we the most loyal kids in the world. Right then, nothing hurt anymore. No anger, no sting, not even disappointment. Just one cold truth sliding through my mind. They never saw me as their mama. When they clinked glasses to celebrate their vacation away from the old lady, I placed the remote on the table. No need to watch another second. I pressed the intercom button to the captain's quarters. Captain Hayes answered, his voice deep and steady like waves hitting the hull. "Madam Booker, awaiting your direction. I want to change access permissions for room 4201. Executing now." I heard typing, a few confirmation beeps. All keycards revoked. Their luggage is being transferred to room U112. That room is near the engineering section per your instructions. I pressed my lips together and nodded though he couldn't see me. Good. An hour later, I checked the cameras again. Malik and Kyra returned to the Grand River Suite, cards in hand, still grinning. Malik swiped. Red. Swiped again. Red. Swiped harder. Still red. Kyra snapped. "What are you doing?" "Open it, I am opening it." I turned the audio up soft as turning on a gospel hymn. Kira screamed, "Get the manager. This is my room." Right on cue, the head steward Jackson arrived, face calm as Sunday morning. "I apologize, ma'am. There's been an update in priority and ownership. This suite falls under the controlling shareholder. You both have been reassigned according to your account tier." Kira froze. Malik choked on his breath. Then Jackson handed them 2 simple metal keys, the tag reading 0122. Deck lower B. I watched, feeling no joy, no victory, no triumph, just one thing. At last, the truth shows its real face. Once they were escorted away, I turned off the screen. The suite sank back into warm light. The river wind pushed the curtains aside gently. I walked to the balcony and looked out at the water glowing gold in the afternoon sun. Before boarding, I thought I might tremble, seeing my son and his wife dragged down a few rungs. But I didn't. I didn't feel like an avenger. I felt like someone restoring a balance that had been broken far too long. The ship's horn blew long and powerful, cutting through the air like the announcement of a new beginning. I inhaled deeply, resting my hand on the cool metal railing. I looked out at the river and thought about the journey ahead, not the river journey, but the journey of reclaiming myself. And that day I knew one thing for certain: the game had begun. 5. I sat on the VIP deck under a clean white canopy, a cup of strong black coffee. In front of me, the steam rising and drifting into the river breeze. The late afternoon sun stretched gold across the Mississippi, sparkling like tiny coins dropped from God's own hand. Down on the lower decks, I could hear people laughing, hollering crew members, calling out orders. But up here, there was nothing but quiet and the scent of freshly roasted coffee. I opened a page of the poetry book I had brought along, an old habit from my younger days. But my eyes weren't reading, I was waiting. From a distance, footsteps approach, fast, angry, dragging across the floor with the kind of sound that rips through peaceful air. A second later, the large glass door slammed open so hard the breeze rushed in and lifted my hair. I didn't look up right away. I slipped my bookmark into the crease, closed the book, slowly, calmly. And when I finally raised my head, there stood Malik and Kira in the middle of the VIP deck like two storms that hadn't been named yet. Kira looked unhinged eyes, blazing face flushed with fury. Malik stood behind her, sweating, breathing hard, his expression a mix of anger and fear. I lifted my cup, took a small sip before asking, "What are y'all doing up here?" Kyra practically screamed. "What did you do? Who told you you could cancel our suite? Who gave you the right to throw us down into that dark little hole?" I tilted my head, a small curve of my mouth, lifting. "Oh, so y'all want to know?" Malik stepped forward, pointing a shaking finger at me. I couldn't tell if it was anger or fear making him tremble. "You spying on us? You set this up. What are you doing, Mama? You're ruining our vacation." I placed my cup back on the table. I didn't ruin anything. The truth did. Kira let out a sharp, bitter laugh, unlike anything I'd ever heard from my daughter-in-law. "And who does she think she is? You're just some old woman living behind the house without us. What do you even have?" I looked her dead in the eyes, a whole lot more than you think, Kyra. Things you never even imagined I had. Right then, the glass door on the left slid open again. Two security officers stepped inside, standing tall and still on either side. And between them was Captain Hayes, broad-shouldered, brown-skinned, steady as an oak tree, eyes hard as steel. He walked straight toward me and took his place at my side, his shadow covering half of mine. Malik and Kira went silent. Hayes spoke, his voice deep and ringing like a church bell. "Guests must lower their voices. This is the private deck of the ship's owner." Kyra blinked fast. "Oh, owner. There ain't no owner here. It's just my mother-in-law." Hayes turned to me, dipping his head slightly. "Madam Booker, would you like me to explain?" I nodded. "Go ahead." The captain faced them, his tone unshakable. "The Apex Magnolia belongs to Apex River Cruises. And that company is under the controlling ownership of Madam Marceline Booker, which means everything on this vessel falls under her authority." Malik's mouth dropped open. Nothing came out. Kyra stepped back like she'd been slapped. I rose slowly, adjusting the silk scarf at my collar. "Y'all used my money to book a luxury suite, then stood in that same room, mocking me, belittling me. You thought I didn't know I saw everything, heard everything, because that room is mine. This ship is mine. And the two of you—" I stepped closer, looking straight at the two people I once loved with my whole heart. "It are nothing but passengers riding on stolen money." Malik swallowed hard, eyes, glassy voice shaking as he tried to sound firm. "Mama, you blowing this out of proportion. We just wanted a vacation, and you acting like this. This ain't you." I laughed once, a short, cold sound. "Oh, it's me. It's the me y'all never wanted to meet. I've been too soft for too long." Kira's fists clenched so tight her knuckles turned white. "We paid for that room. We had every right." I tilted my head. "Paid with whose money?" Kira went silent. Hayes stepped forward. "If either of you continue disrespecting Mrs. Booker, I will have to escort you out of this area." I looked at the captain, then at the couple standing there like two guilty children. No need, Hayes. They about to hear a whole lot more. I turned toward the river, placing my hand on the cool metal railing, letting the cold seep into my palm. Then I spoke, voice low but clear. "Today is just the first step. Y'all got more to answer for." The air thickened. Malik trembled. Kyra narrowed her eyes, desperate to find any way out, but all the exits had been sealed shut by their own lies. I turned back, looked them dead in the eyes, and said the sentence I knew would stay with them for the rest of their lives. "Y'all think you're on vacation? You're not. This is a lesson. I lifted my cup again, took one last sip. Then I smiled soft but sharp enough to cut. And class has only just begun. There are wounds in a family that don't come from strangers. They come from the ones who carry your name, from the very babies you once held in your arms. So tell me, if it were you facing betrayal from your own child, what would you do? Leave a comment. I want to hear your story. 6. After the confrontation on the VIP deck, I knew things couldn't end there. What Malik and Kira had done wasn't just disrespect or ungratefulness, it was theft in every legal and moral sense. And if I let it pass with a few sharp words, they'd do it again just like they always have, over and over. That evening, I asked Captain Hayes to prepare the Romanov private dining room, the space reserved for closed door meetings, high stakes contract dinners, or conversations requiring absolute dignity. Walnut paneled walls, crystal chandeliers, heavy, deep green velvet drapes, a perfect place for sharp, deliberate silence. I arrived early. The attendant brought me a plate of lemon butter salmon and a light Riesling. I wasn't truly hungry, but I wanted to stay calm. Sitting at that table, I felt something familiar return, that feeling I used to have when sitting at the head of a boardroom table with 12 shareholders watching me thinking they were smarter, only to end up signing whatever I put in front of them, beaten by reason and by presence. I sat quietly and waited. At exactly 8:30, the door opened. Malik and Kira walked in. Their appearance said everything: worn out, anxious, trying hard to look composed but failing miserably. Kira had on a tight black dress, makeup smudged like someone who'd just cried. Malik wore the same wrinkled blazer from that morning. They looked around the room, then at me, realizing it was just the three of us. Me, them, and one empty chair. Mama. Malik began, voice shaking like a man about to be judged because he was. Sit. I pointed to the two seats across from me. They sat. Kara attempted a crooked smile. Miss Marceline, about earlier, that was just a misunderstanding. We were tired, stressed, so we got a little. Stop? My voice was soft but final. No need to perform. Kyra's smile collapsed. She sat up straight, stiff as a metal rod. I pulled a thick folder from the center of the table, a folder as heavy as the Bible at Mount Zion Church back home. Gray leather, solid, embossed with the logo of my old company. I slid it toward them. Take a look. Malik hesitated, then opened the cover. I watched the color drain from his face on the very first page. Kira leaned in, and I heard her swallow hard. The pages were full of Franklin's handwriting, my old lawyer, meticulous to the point of irritating. Every withdrawal, every transaction, every dollar taken from my authorized account was marked clearly. I spoke my tone even and controlled. Since the day I gave you 2 power of attorney 10 years ago, the total amount withdrawn for illegitimate use is almost $100,000, little by little, week after week, month after month. Not a lot at once, but constant. Kyra jumped in. Ma'am, you're misunderstanding. That was you. I cut her off. You used my card to get your hair done, $400, nails 80, 20 times. Kara opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I turned the page. Malik's gas receipts. Every time you claimed $60, the actual bill was 30. The difference went straight to your private account. Malik lowered his head, face burning with shame. I turned another page. My blood pressure medication, $40 per bottle. But you withdrew 200, more than 10 times. Kira glared at Malik, but I could see plain as day they were both guilty. Finally, I flipped to the last page, the biggest transaction. I pushed it toward them. And here's the most recent one. $15,000 for that luxury suite. The exact money I gave you to fix the roof. The room fell silent, dead silent, like a cemetery at midnight. Only the air conditioning hummed. Kyra's voice trembled, Miss Marceline. We were going to pay it back. We were just tired. We're stressed. Don't call me Ma. I said it quietly, but the emotion finally seeped through. Mama is for someone you respect. To you, I'm just a walking ATM. Malik suddenly broke down, tears spilling over. I'm sorry. Mama, I'm really sorry, but you gotta understand Kyra. She just wants a better life. I just want to be a good husband. I looked straight into the eyes of the son I had once sacrificed my career to lift up. So you want to be such a good husband, you'd sell your own mama to please your wife? Malik covered his face. Kira turned away, unable to meet my eyes. I continued, my voice low but sharp. Franklin has already filed the paperwork revoking every piece of financial authority. From now on, neither of you touches my accounts. All your cards are disabled. Joint accounts frozen. Kira shot to her feet, her chair crashing to the floor. How are we supposed to live? Who's paying? Who's covering our bills? I looked at her not with anger, but with exhaustion. Y'all said you were independent. I'm simply helping you live up to your own words. Kyra opened her mouth to protest, but Malik pulled her back into her seat. I rose. They stood as well instinctively. Tonight, I want the two of you to think about everything you've done. Think about how you turned the woman who raised you into nothing. Think about why you believed I would never find out. I walked toward the door, but before stepping out, I turned back for one last look at two people drowning in their own greed. Tomorrow, I'll decide your future. Then I walked away, leaving them in that cold, heavy room with the truth hanging above them like a blade waiting to fall. 7. The next morning, I woke up early. The sky was still washed in pale mist, soft white light slipping through the glass walls surrounding the solarium on the upper deck. I chose to sit there, a space full of greenery, gentle sunlight, and a quiet so clean you could hear the steady trickle of water through the aquarium system in the corner. I made myself a cup of lavender tea, set it on the table, and leaned back in a wicker chair. The peacefulness felt almost surreal compared to what I knew was happening a few decks below, where Malik and Kyra were shut inside that small room, near the engine systems, the floor shaking every time the gear shifted. I sipped my tea. A faint sting on my tongue warmth, sliding down my throat. A strange calm settled inside me, but I understood. There's always a cold beauty in the quiet before a storm. I was turning a page of my book when I heard soft footsteps behind me. I didn't look right away, but I could feel someone standing at the door, unsure, hesitating. Then a trembling voice whispered, "Mama, Miss Marceline, can I come in?" I looked up. Kyra stood there, not the made-up, sharp-tongued woman from yesterday. No heavy makeup, no smug expression, no swaying hips like everything in sight belonged to her. Her hair was tied up in a rushed bun, her face, pale eyes, swollen from crying. She stood, hunched hands twisting together like a scolded child. I nodded toward the chair across from me. "Come in, sit." Kira moved slowly, like she thought I might change my mind at any second. When she finally sat, she pulled herself in tight, as if the chair itself felt too heavy for her. I didn't speak, I just looked. And that silence alone was enough to make her start trembling. I couldn't sleep, she began. "Malik, he was yelling all night, blaming me, saying it's my fault, saying I ruined everything. I stayed quiet. I wanted to see which script she was about to run this time." Kira kept going, tears beginning to fall. I didn't know Malik was taking that much money. He told me it was bonus money reimbursement deals he made. I believed him. I just wanted to be a good wife, do what he asked. I closed my eyes for a moment. When I opened them, I looked straight at her. "So you're telling me you're the victim, Kira?" She nodded frantically, sobbing harder. "Yes. Yes, ma'am. I didn't know he lied to you. I didn't want to take your money. I swear." I set my tea down, tilting my head. "Then maybe you can help me explain this." I picked up my tablet, tapped a file the tech team had sent me earlier that morning. A recording began to play, the sound unmistakably Kira's voice. Sharp, cruel, venomous. "That old hag thinks she's somebody. Wait till we hit shore. I'll get a lawyer to declare her senile. Dump her in some cheap nursing home so she learns her place. Leave her there a few months, she'll sign everything over." Kira's voice from the night before sliced through the peaceful solarium like a blade. Every word was a needle. The Kira in front of me froze. Color drained from her face as fast as water spilling from a cracked cup. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. Her jaw shook uncontrollably. I tapped the screen to stop the audio. "That you or somebody else?" My voice was soft but heavy as stone. Kira broke. This time it wasn't the performance crying she'd perfected. It was panic. The kind of panic that comes when someone sees their last escape burned to ash. I, I said it when I was mad. I didn't mean it. I didn't. Her voice cracked. I'm scared. I'm scared you'll leave me behind. I'm scared to lose everything. I straightened. You called me senile. You planned to lock me in a nursing home. You planned to take my house, my life's work, and now you say you're scared to lose everything. Kira collapsed forward, hands on her knees, sobbing so hard her shoulders shook. Please, please, Miss. Marceline, I'm begging you. I said something stupid. I know I was wrong. Please don't leave me with nothing. I looked at her, no anger, no vengeance, just a deep bone level exhaustion. Kyra, I said quietly, you didn't lose everything because of me. You lost everything because of you. You lit the fire and now you're crying because you got burned. She wailed louder. Please don't abandon me. I'll leave Malik. I'll start over. I'll apologize. I'll pay you back. I lifted my hand to stop her. You don't need to apologize anymore. Apologies only matter when they come before you get caught. Kira fell silent. I stood up. There's nothing left for us to talk about. Go back to your deck. I need to be alone. It took her a moment to stand. She gripped the chair legs, shaking so badly she could barely hold herself up. At the door, she looked back, eyes full of panic and despair, then stumbled out. When she pulled the door, the hinge groaned in the quiet room, heavy enough to choke the air. Then it closed. And once again, I was alone with the stillness and the fading steam of my tea. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just recognized a truth as sharp as winter. It wasn't me who lost them. They lost me a long time ago. Now what? They were just living with the consequences of what they created themselves. 8. That afternoon, the Apex Magnolia shifted course under Captain Hayes's orders. I stood on the lower deck near the gangway, where the wind sweeping in from the Arkansas shoreline cut cold across my skin like a blade. The sky was ash-gray clouds, sagging heavy, as if rain was near not rain from the sky, but the kind of rain fate saves for those who finally have to face it. I wore a thick camel coat, a deep red silk scarf around my neck. The curls of a 65-year-old black woman fluttered in the wind, but inside me, nothing moved. Everything in my mind was clear, clean, like a chalkboard wiped bare. No more doubt, no more guilt, just one final task left in this journey. Behind me stood 3 security officers and Captain Hayes, firm and silent. They didn't ask questions. They didn't need to. A woman who steps aboard her own ship never gives commands unless she's certain. I heard the metal door at the end of the corridor swing open. Malik and Kira appeared. They no longer looked like the glamorous smug couple who'd strutted onto the ship 2 days ago. Now they looked like survivors of a storm, closed, wrinkled eyes, sunken faces, gray, from sleeplessness, from fear, from fighting. Malik dragged 2 black suitcases behind him. I recognized them. They were Kyra's, the ones she bragged were made for people who know luxury. Today, all that shine looked like cheap paint over a sinking ship. Kira staggered a little, clutching her sky blue purse, the one she treated better than herself. When she saw me standing there, she froze like someone had slapped her. Malik stopped beside her, eyes wide. I didn't speak. I waited until their footsteps halted. Then I pointed toward the open gangway leading to the riverbank. It's time, I said. Malik tried to smile, but his lips trembled violently. Mama, you mean this is a sightseeing stop, right? A tour? I looked him straight in the eye. No, Malik, this is your stop. Kira shook her head over and over her lips, turning purple. No, no, that's impossible. This is nothing out here. There's no hotel, no car, no, that's right, I said. There's nothing, just some dirt roads and an old gas station 4 miles out. Malik dropped the suitcase, hands reaching out as if begging. Mama, you can't do this. I'm your son. I messed up, I know, I'm sorry. Please give us another chance. Captain Hayes stood behind me, eyes sharp as if recording every word they spoke. The security officers shifted their stance, ready, but I lifted my hand so they wouldn't move. I stepped to the top of the gangway and looked down at them. Malik, you're right. You are my son, but the day you let your wife steer you, let greed lead you, Let your weakness stomp on the heart of the woman who raised you that day. You ended that bond. Malik collapsed onto his knees like his legs couldn't hold him. Mama, please don't leave us. Mama, please. Kira stood stiff as stone, hands clenched so tight her knuckles whitened. I turned to her. And you call me mama when you need money. But behind my back, I am an old hag, a burden, a cash cow. You plan to toss me into some cheap nursing home, and now you want me to save you, Kira broke, crying out loud. I I didn't think you heard. I heard, and I remember. The wind picked up, rattling the steel ramp. I knew the moment had come. I nodded at Hayes. He stepped forward, voice cold as steel hitting water. Mr. and Mrs. Booker, you are required to disembark. Kira screamed, I'll sue this ship. I have rights. Hayes replied plainly. No, you have no rights on property that belongs to the owner. Malik crawled forward, grabbing my pant leg, tears soaking the deck. Mama, don't leave us here. We don't have money. We don't have a car. We don't know anybody. I looked down at him, the same boy I once held at 3.5 pounds, the child I told bedtime stories to, the boy I shielded from every early hardship. But the man clutching my leg now was not the child I raised. Malik, I said softly, without a tremor, you told me you were grown. You told me you didn't need me, that you could stand on your own. So here it is, your chance to prove it. I pulled my leg away from his grip. Go. Two security officers lifted him gently but firmly. Another steadied Kira, whose knees had nearly given out. They stumbled down the gangway, stepping onto the rough, red-brown dirt. Dirt I knew Kira had never touched a day in her life. The wind tore at their clothes. The Arkansas riverbank trees whispered like a sad hymn. I stood on the deck looking down. Malik wrapped his arms around Kyra, staring up at me with pure despair. Mama, we're gonna die out here. I answered, no, you won't die. You'll just start living for the first time. I tipped my head. Hayes signaled. The gangway lifted. Metal clanged to sound like the final lock clicking shut on a rotted past. I watched them one last time, two small figures on empty ground surrounded by 4 suitcases stuffed with things they thought made them important, now nothing more than dead weight. Red dust swirled around their legs. I turned away as the ship pulled off, not because I was cruel, but because I understood something. Sometimes love isn't holding on. Sometimes it's letting people fall so you can see how they get back up. The engine rumbled, pushing the ship away from the shore, and I felt it, a weight lifting from my chest, a weight 10 years old. No tears, no shaking, no regret, just a deep, quiet peace like a lake gone still after a storm, when the water stops screaming and the sky stops pressing down. A chapter had closed, and I was finally stepping into the next one. 9. The apex magnolia pulled away from Cottonwood Point like a long white shadow drifting through the heart of the Mississippi. I leaned against the upper deck railing, my deep red silk scarf trailing behind me, like the tail of an old dancer who'd finally found her rhythm again. Far below, Malik and Kyra shrank smaller and smaller, then disappeared behind the brown withered tree line along the bank. Even that empty patch of dirt faded out of sight like a wound that had finally been stitched shut. The wind picked up as the ship gained speed. The smell of river mud, dry leaves, and the last trace of southern summer air all blended together and rushed into my lungs. I took a deep breath. My body felt lighter, not the lightness of joy, but the lightness that comes when a boulder you've carried for years finally rolls off your shoulders. I leaned farther into the railing, my palm resting on the cool metal. The water below split into wide white trails behind the ship. I listened to that sound, the sound of freedom, the sound of journeys no longer chained down, the sound of a life finally turning a new page. Captain Hayes stepped out through the glass door and stood beside me. He didn't say a word, just adjusted his cap as if confirming that my last command still stood. I turned to him. Hayes, we're not going back to New Orleans. He nodded. Yes, Madam Booker. Where do you want to go? I looked at the wide open river ahead. The water stretched out like a road with no end, sometimes green, sometimes brown, sometimes catching the sunlight like scattered gold, sometimes dark as a sleepless night. I spoke slowly, each word grounded upstream. North, all the way to Minnesota. Hayes blinked. That's a long journey. Over 2 weeks. I know, I said. I want to see the leaves change. I've waited half a lifetime. He bowed deeply. Understood, Madam Booker. As he walked away, his tall shadow stretched long across the deck. I watched it and I smiled, not the smile of triumph, not the smile of revenge, but the smile of someone who finally realized she still had years left and endless choices ahead. I asked myself, how long has it been since I did something just for me, not for my child, not for my husband, not for the company, not for the people who depended on me? For me, probably close to 40 years. I walked along the deck, slow steps. The wind lifted my coat. The Arkansas trees lined the river banks in shades of gold red and brick brown. Somewhere far off, a strange bird called out across the late afternoon sky. Its cry reminded me of when I was a girl, running around behind my grandmother's house in Baton Rouge, where river birds perched on the fence, and Grandma said they brought good signs. You watch them and grow up, she used to tell me. Migrating birds always know when it's time to move, when it's time to change direction. You too, Marceline. I placed a hand over my chest. Maybe today was the first day I finally listened to her. I left the top deck and took the private corridor to the ship's small library. The room was so quiet, I could hear the turning of every page. When the designer showed me the ship plans years ago, I insisted this library had to exist. I once dreamed of a place to escape the meetings, the pressure, the arguing voices. But for 10 years, I'd stopped living like the woman who once needed escape to breathe. Standing in that library now, I felt myself returning not to an old version of me, but to the real one. Not the forgotten mother in the back house, but Marceline Booker, the woman the logistic world once respected. I pulled a book from the shelf, Langston Hughes, one of the first black poets I read growing up. I opened a random page and read Hold Fast to Dreams. For if dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. I touched the lines with my fingertips. How many dreams had I let go? How many things did I bury because I didn't want to trouble my child? Because I believed I had to live for everyone else? Because I forgot that my dreams mattered too? I sat down in the soft leather chair in the center of the room. The leather was cold at first, making me shiver, but then it warmed, wrapping my back like an old familiar embrace. I closed my eyes not to sleep, but to feel fully and clearly something I hadn't felt in years: freedom. No one calling for me, no one ordering me, no one demanding from me, no one treating me like a burden. I was free in the purest sense of the word. I opened my eyes. The ship kept pushing forward, carving out gentle ripples on either side. The sky shifted into lavender, then into soft orange. The river became a mirror reflecting the light. I stood and walked out to the small balcony of the library. The evening sun warmed my face. I tilted my head, letting the wind brush past, carrying the scent of burned leaves and damp earth. I didn't look back toward the shore. The people I left behind needed to learn to live without me. And I needed to learn to live without their weight. For the first time in my life, I understood that happiness isn't about being treated well. Happiness is cutting loose the hands that pull you under and walking on your own water. The ship kept moving upstream toward the land of red leaves, and I stepped into the next chapter of my life, light steady and completely free. As the sun finally slipped behind the tree line along the river, I stood alone on the deck, watching the Mississippi glow gold under the dying light. The wind moved around me, and for the first time in a long time, I felt it clear and sharp that some wounds only heal when you're brave enough to walk away from the very hands that hurt you. I'd left a part of my life behind, the part I kept holding on to simply because I called it family. But sometimes the thing we call family is the blade that cuts us the deepest. Now, as the ship carried me toward the red leaf country up north, I knew I'd finally done what I had to do to save myself. My life, after years of being smothered under the shadow of blind sacrifice, was opening up at last like this river, wide, powerful, and free. There are pains you can't speak out loud. There are decisions that cost you pieces of your own heart. But sometimes it's the loss itself that brings you back to the most beautiful part of who you are. And I wonder, if it were you facing betrayal from the very people who share your name, Would you be brave enough to let go the way I did? Tell me how you feel. Share your story in the comments below. I want to hear your truth.